Have you ever thought about what it would feel like to be swallowed by silence? Not the kind that fills a quiet room, but the kind that presses against your chest and makes you doubt if the world outside your skin still exists. December 1900. That was the month 3 men vanished from a lighthouse on the edge of the world, and no one ever truly answered why. Not the officials, not the sailors, not the sea. What happened on the Flannan Isles? The Isles Lighthouse stood alone, battered by wind, perched on jagged rock 20 miles off the northwest coast of Scotland. A place the locals didn't like to speak of after dark. The keepers assigned there, 3 men by the names of Flannan, Muirin, and Laskin, were chosen for their discipline, veterans of the job. No nonsense, no nerves. But when the supply vessel, Hesperus, arrived late due to poor weather on December 26th, what they found made even hardened sailors go pale. The light was on, but no one came to greet them. The relief keeper, Flannan Doyle, was the first to step ashore. He was used to the cold slap of ocean wind, but something was different. The air felt heavy, like it hadn't moved in days. The path up to the lighthouse was slick with frost, but there were no footprints. Inside, the front door was unlocked. A chair lay on its side. The kitchen table had plates set for 3, one with a fork still half buried in boiled potatoes. Salted herring sat untouched, curling at the edges. Clocks on the walls had all stopped at exactly 9:33. None of the keepers were there. They searched every corner, shouting names into stairwells and down storage shafts. Nothing. Beds were made but not slept in. Oil cans were full. The last logbook entry was dated December 15th. The entry before that had rattled Doyle more than he admitted aloud. Muirin is staring again, it read. Says he hears someone calling from the sea. Won't sleep. Keeps muttering prayers that don't sound like any I know. Another line had simply said, the storm has passed. God is over all. But Doyle knew there hadn't been a storm. Not on the 15th, not anywhere near. The inquiry that followed blamed it on a freak wave. Said maybe they went to secure a crane on the lower level and were swept away. But that never made sense. Why would all 3 leave together, abandoning their posts, their meals, their coats? Weeks later, the mystery was already becoming myth. Locals spoke of a curse. Fishermen started steering clear of the area, but Flannan Doyle couldn't let it go. He started drinking more, talking less. The light in his eyes faded, and one day he mailed a letter to his cousin in Glasgow. A single sentence scrawled across the page. They didn't vanish. Something took them. The letter was dismissed as drunken rambling, but 2 months after the disappearance, Doyle disappeared too. Left his rented room, never returned. His boots were found near the shore of Lochbroom, facing the water. The official story was simple. Grief, madness, suicide. But there's another version of the story, one passed from mouth to mouth in hushed tones across the Hebrides. It came from a man named Chorus, a shepherd who tended sheep on the nearby Isle of Lewis. He claimed to have seen lights out near the Flannan Isles just days before the keepers vanished, not from the lighthouse, above it. Flickering like a firefly swarm, but moving with purpose, slowly circling the tower. He said it made the hairs on his arms stand straight. At the time, no one believed him. But Chorus stuck to his story for the rest of his life. And then there was the boy. He doesn't appear in any official record. His name, Brannock, is found only in a single police note stored in a dusty box in Inverness. Brannock was 12, the son of a fisherman who lived in the hamlet of Geranin. He was found in a barn one night, curled into a ball, eyes wide open. He wouldn't speak for hours. When he finally did, his voice cracked like frozen glass. He said he had seen a man made of black wind crawl up the cliff toward the lighthouse, days before the disappearances. He said it had no face, just hands. Long, thin hands that never touched the ground, and a mouth that sang in a voice like bells underwater. His story, too, was dismissed, a child's nightmare. But the strange thing was, Brannock had never been to the Flannan Isles. He didn't know the names of the keepers, yet in his sleep, he cried out one name again and again. Laskin, Laskin. He won't stop screaming. The wind howls around those cliffs to this day, and no keeper since has lasted more than a season. Spring 1901. The lighthouse stood empty. A new crew had refused to man it. The Northern Lighthouse Board rotated temporary teams, but no one stayed longer than a few nights. Word had spread, stories bled into the mainland, that the lighthouse was haunted, cursed, even alive. Most wrote it off as Scottish folklore, but in April, a man named Ewan Targ volunteered to go. Targ wasn't superstitious. He had served in the Merchant Navy, survived a torpedo strike, and once swam 2 miles through rough surf after his boat capsized. He didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in tides, wind, and physics. He was sent with 2 others, Halvik and Beor, and strict orders to inspect, repair, and report. The first 2 nights were uneventful, cold, isolated, boring even. Targ wrote in his journal that the place felt strangely clean, as though everything had been scrubbed a little too well. On the 3rd night, Beor woke screaming. He claimed he saw a man standing outside the glass dome of the lantern room, even though they were 80 feet above the sea and the outside catwalk was slick with frost. Halvik searched. No footprints, no signs of forced entry. They laughed it off. Bad dream. That night, Halvik went missing. Beor found his coat on the stairs, but no sign of him. Targ combed every level, checked the cliffs, the outbuildings. Gone. No blood, no signs of a fall. Just gone. Beor started mumbling, just like the logs had said Murren did months before. He said the fog was talking to him, that it knew his name. Targ slapped him, tried to wake him up, but Beor wouldn't eat, wouldn't blink. He just kept whispering, "There's a door in the light. We shouldn't open it." The supply ship was due in 4 days. They had no radio, just lanterns and silence. Targ locked the doors, tried to keep Beor calm, tried to keep himself calm. On the 2nd night alone, Targ heard footsteps upstairs, deliberate, slow. He climbed to the tower, hammer in hand. The door to the lantern room was ajar. Inside, the lamp had gone out, and someone or something had drawn a circle on the glass in soot. Inside it, a handprint. Long, too long. Targ turned, heart pounding. Behind him, the room was empty. When he descended, Beor was gone too. But the front door was still locked from the inside. He scoured the island. Not a trace, not a sound. The last entry in Targ's journal was dated April 12th. "There's something beneath the rock. I heard it breathing. I am alone now. Not just alone. Watched." When the next supply ship arrived, the lighthouse was dark. Again, this time completely abandoned. The relief crew found the doors barred from the inside. Targ's journal was on the floor beside his boots. But no Targ. The Northern Lighthouse Board closed the post for repairs. They said severe weather and structural damage had made it unsafe for crews. But no such weather was recorded that week. The official logs were altered. Targ's name was quietly removed from assignment lists. His family was told he died at sea. The original journal disappeared from archives 2 years later. Locals say the island was never meant to be lived on, that the rocks are older than the land around them, pulled up from beneath the ocean before time had names. Some whisper that the lighthouse itself was a mistake, that its light wakes something below. In 1925, a fisherman swore he saw 3 men standing atop the Flannan Cliffs in the middle of a storm. Not moving, not sheltering, just standing with heads tilted up, mouths open like they were drinking the sky. His name was Lorcan Venn. He refused to speak of it again, said the sea had eyes. The island remains uninhabited. In 1971, a team of geological surveyors was helicoptered in for a routine check. They stayed 6 hours. None returned the next year. One of them, a woman named Maura Kenley, left behind a tape recorder. The final few minutes of tape are almost unlistenable. Wind, static, screaming. But just before the end, a voice is heard. Male, weak, hoarse. Murren was right. It's under us. We never built this. Then silence. The tape was archived, misplaced, eventually forgotten. Today, tourists visit the Hebrides. They take photos from boats. They marvel at the lonely tower. But they never dock. Not really. The sea won't let them. Something stirs the water, just beneath the surface. Something that watches lighthouses. Something that hates the light. So the question still stands, what really happened on the Flannan Isles? And do you believe the men vanished, or were they taken?